That we start today the second day of the strategic management under bank finance and bank business. So today we are going to discuss about last week we discussed basically the what is the strategic planning, why it is important, um, and what are the benefits and what are the pitfalls of the strategic plan. But today, what we are going to discuss with you all about the area where comes under uh, subject, the understand the key components of strategic planning format for a strategic plan. So different designs, what is vision, missions, goals, objectives, and strategies, level of strategies, etc. Right. Now, with this start, we may discuss about the levels of strategy. Now, strategies, exist at a number of levels in an organization. Now, it is possible to distinguish at least three levels in organization strategies. Now, at the corporate level, you may have a different type of strategies. At the business level or business unit level, like SBU level, you have a separate set of strategies. And the functional level and operational level, you may have a different level of strategies. Now, this chart will tells you about the levels of strategies. Now, say for an example, uh, usually the uh, head of divisions or head office, you have usually developed the corporate strategy. At the SBU levels, you develop the business strategy, and the financial operational level strategy comes at the third level. So first we try to understand what is corporate level strategy. Actually, this is the apex of the organization. Now, the corporate level strategy is concerned with the overall purpose and the scope of the organization. Now, how can you add value to your organization, right? It is basically a more or less developed by other or formulated by top management, right? And then this passes down to line business managers to carry on. Right? That is the usually the corporate level strategies. Now, this corporate level strategy basically addresses the uh, action that the total organization is taking and should take. Right now, say for an example, here the typically concerned with determining the overall purpose and scope of the organization. Right now, the type of questions we are going to address in the corporate level strategy: what businesses should we get into, and which should and how you do, what customers we are going to treat, things like that. Now, say for an example, decisions about acquisition and merging. Suppose your organization going to merge with another organization, or your organization going to acquire some organization, whether to decide organization going to enter into the new market or come up with the new technology. Basically, at the corporate level, strategy will is a non-routine decisions, right? Okay, so that is what we call on a corporate level strategy. Actually, the corporate level strategy will take the at the strategic decision. Then the business level strategy, the second level strategy, can be thought of in terms of business level. The unit strategy, which is concerned about how to compete successfully in a particular market. Now, they usually answer the questions like how will the business compete within this particular market? What are the product and services offering, right? Uh, Especially discuss the marketing issues, right? How to segment the market? Uh, what is the product development? Uh, we going to do, right? Right. So how will the resources be distributed within the businesses? So these questions we will address at the strategic at the SBU level. Then the third level is the more operational level, or what you call them as a functional level. That's the third level of strategy, where we are going to discuss about the uh, day-to-day basis deliver effectively the corporate and business level strategy. Now, how the functional level strategy support for achievement of business level strategy and the corporate level strategy by way of providing resources, processes, people to do that, right? So the functional level strategies or the operational level strategies basically support the business level strategy, and the business level strategy is usually support the corporate level strategy. Now, under functional level strategy, mind you, we discuss about the uh, how much investors, how much stock to carry out, how much inventory to carry out, how many staff to be employed, right? Like that. So these are the three type of levels where we are going to discuss, right? Three type of levels we are going to discuss. Okay, now we discuss now there are three type of strategy levels. So the strategies we going to execute will vary from corporate level, business level, and the function and the basically the functional level, right? Operational level. So now let's look at it. Which approach to strategy should we adopt? What is the strategy? What is the approach we are going to use it? There are two type of approach here. One approach we call them as formal approach. Other approach we call them as an informal approach. Right? We will discuss two type of approach. One is a formal approach, and the other one is a informal approach. Now, formal approach, more formal planning approach, such as the rationale model we usually call them as, and to a degree the emergent model tend to suit this organization. There are basically two types of model we discuss under formal approach. Right? We are going to discuss two types of model under formal approach, specifically the rationale model and emergent model. So emergent model we discussed little thing on last week, right? But it's formal approach and the emergent approach is not the same, but there may be a slight difference, but then we discuss under formal approach, right? Now, this formal approach is ideal if we are dealing with relatively stable industries. Now, that means we have enough time to conduct the uh, strategic analysis, right? We have sufficient time. And if you have sometimes inexperienced managers, they are not much exposed to changing environment, we may apply formal approach. The second approach we call informal approach. Now, informal approach, we have two approaches under that. That is what you call freewheeling opportunism approach and logical incrementalism approach, right? So don't worry about this word, right? So there are two words, and these approaches are ideal when environment or when the organization facing or exist in a dynamic, fast changing industries. So what do you mean by that? That is no sufficient time for strategic analysis. And here under this, we may have experienced managers. They are very much familiar with what is taking place in the external environment. Right? Okay. And also, most of the time, what happened, normally informal approach, we are not expecting external finance from the external investors. Why? Because the moment you go for external investors, they are seeing the typical, where is the typical planning process or plan. Right. Now, approach to strategy, you may learn two ways. One is an informal approach, other one is a formal approach. Right. Having understood, there are four approaches to developing a strategy. There are four approaches to developing a strategy. And also, mind you, none of them can be considered to be the best approach. It depends on the given situation. It is depend on the type of organization under certain circumstances. The approach for strategy, again, as I told you, combined by or maybe bound by some factors. Right? So, as we learned little while ago, now the strategies approach can be formal and a rational. Formal and informal. Now, formal strategy further can be looked at it in two ways: rational model or emergent approach, logical incrementalism approach, and freewheeling opportunism approach. Now, let me try to explain all these four approaches. When you are developing a strategy, these are the approaches can be taken care by a strategy. So, a person. Let's look at the rational formal approach to strategy. Now, as you are well aware, the rational approach, sometimes we call them as a formal, a traditional, top-down, step-by-step approach. That's a normal approach. Everybody we are doing. Sometimes we call is a strategic planning process model based on rational behavior, rational thinking. So they behave in a logical manner. So what? First we design the mission, then the vision, then the objectives of the organization, or goals of the organization. Then we look at the objective of the organization. We may look at the value aspects, value statements or value areas, right? And that is a normal way of preparations of strategy. Now, if you really look at it, the format, this is the strategic management process. We identify the vision, mission, goals, objectives, strategies, and then we analyze the environment, identify the opportunities, threats, analyze the organization's resources, identify the strengths and weaknesses of the organization through SWOT analysis, special analysis, and then we develop the strategies, implement the strategies, evaluate the result. And this is the standard strategic management process, or this is the standard strategic planning process. So this is what you call a rational model or rational approach for strategy development. Okay, so if you look at it in another angle, again we look at it developing a vision, carry out internal and external audit, that we scanning the environment, and then we decide the goals and then the objectives. That's strategy formulation. Then we develop implementing strategy and the strategy evaluation. So this is a typical strategic rationale model. Right. Now let me look at the second method. That is what you call Meansburg Emergent Approach. Now the Meansburg is the guy who come up with this approach through strategic. Cannot be think, are not always formally planned. He said not always good, but in reality, strategies may evolve in response to unexpected events that impact on the organization. When we discuss about the 4 type of strategies, right? I told you there is no any model approach to strategy, but it depends on the circumstances, right? Now we discuss what is rational model, and now we are going to discuss what is Meansburg Emergent Approach. Now, this emergent approach does not necessarily mean that organization does not have a formal plan, right? That means, so you must have a formal plan, but the formal plan to be successful, and it will be able to emerge for unexpected event or situation, right? Now, remember again what is Meansburg say, you must have a formal plan, but the formal plan may be flexible enough to change at the given situation. Now, good example he has quoted, which I explained to you last time also. You know, the Pfizer is the pharmaceutical famous company in the world. And they introduce sildenafil means a drug for high blood pressure. But unfortunately, this drug failed in the market as a high blood pressure treatment. And they did some survey, and they did some analysis and some research quickly, and they found that this can be used for some other area. So that is how they came up with the product, rebranded as Viagra. Now today, the market, if you say Viagra, everybody knows what is Viagra is using to stimulate the strength of the people. So the Viagra started a new multi-billion-dollar market for Pfizer. A lot of people are purchasing for certain activities, right? Now, how the plan was changed with the given situation. So that is what is, but you have a plan, but the plan or the strategy can be flexible enough to change as the need arises. So that is the second approach. Third approach, now say for an example, this you know what, right? This is a case study, right? Now read this case. T PLC is an electronic manufacturer which has recently created a detailed strategic review of its operation. Now, electronic manufacturer, which has recently created a detailed strategic review of its operation, as well as its external environments. They look at the analysis. T identified as a company identified that it had significant skills with regard to the manufacture of electronic displays and launched a range of flat screen television. So they are skilled, but they introduced flat screen television. But unfortunately, its new product range, that the flat screen, while praised by reviewers, a lot of reviewers mean they are praised, but failed to sell it to the public. So the companies therefore abandoned its original strategy and took advantage of an offer by HHH, another electronic manufacturer, to make screens for HH's mobile smartphone. Right? Now, you need to understand the situation. Now, the TPSC is an electronic manufacturer who usually have the expertise, and they come up with flat screen television. But many responses from the reviews, but it's not well sold in the market. And then there's a proposal came from another electronic manufacturer to make screens for its popular mobile smartphones instead of television. Now the question is, which approach to strategy is closest to that adopted by T when accepting HHS offer? Now, HHS offer that, okay, this is not good for TV, but give it to us for we as manufacturing of manufacturers of mobile. They immediately take the strategy given in the situation, and this is like typical example of Pfizer. Pfizer, that Sendilim is not good, but they change the strategy to introduce it a different way, like Viagra. So, what is the suitable approach here? This case also, it is a emergent approach. It's called emergent. I just put this case for you to understand, right? In fact, this is CIM or SIMA approach, right? SIMA, when you are learning SIMA, your final stage, right? This type of questions they will come. Right. Now let's look at the second approach. Now we have learned two approaches. What are the two approaches? We learned rational model, it's a typical model, step-by-step approach. Then we discussed a little while ago the emergent approach. And then we move into the third approach. It's called logical incrementalism approach. What do you mean by a logical incrementalism approach? Now, this approach suggests that strategy tends to be a small-scale extension of past policy. Now, rather than we are going to change the things radically, what we have usually doing, but we try to adjust to existing strategy with some small changes. That is what we call incrementalism approach. Not radical change, slowly do some changes. Now, this strategy is welcomed by a lot of stakeholders due to, uh, because can test whether fail or not, because we have a slight adjustment. But one major disadvantage of this approach is suffer from strategic drift. What do you mean by that? So when you go incremental changes, somebody will take up your position about your business, right? It will impact your long-term strategic plan. We do logical incrementalism approach. That's the third approach. Now let's look at it, your knowledge. Now, which of the following statements are consistent with incrementalism? If you really look at it, I just give you a question and then for understanding purposes. Okay. Strategy tends to be small-scale extensions of past policies. No formal planning should be undertaken. The business should simply react to events as they occur. Strategy development should follow a series of logical stages. Detailed internal and external analysis should be undertaken before deciding on the future strategy of the organization. So, what may be the answer? Here, right? Now, if you really look at D, what is D talk about? What is this D talk about? Detailed analysis of what is D talk about? Detailed internal and external analysis should be undertaken before deciding on the future strategy of the organization. It is a rational approach. Strategy development should follow a series of logical stages that also rational approach. So therefore C and D related to strategic, so usual rational model approach. Then B is talk about what? B, no formal planning should be undertaken. The business should be simply react to events as they occur. So that is what you call freewheeling opportunism, right? And the incrementalism approach is we call small scale extension, and that is incrementalism. So therefore answer is B. So let's look at it. What is freewheeling opportunism approach? What is freewheeling opportunism? Now, this suggests that organizations should avoid formal planning. He said no planning is necessary. And instead, simply take advantage opportunities as they arise. Now, last week we discussed there may be a criticism against strategy planning, right? So, this is an answer. Don't plan. Take advantage of opportunities as they arise. These are some of the approaches. Those are informal approaches. We call them as informal approaches, right? Okay, now I'll just go back again, discuss about approaches to developing a strategy. There are two types of approach. One is a formal approach, other one is informal approach. Formal approach is ideal for stable type of environment where you have enough time to do a strategic analysis and come up with a nice plan. But there are some instances we don't have to wait for some time. We have no time to do a strategic analysis. We need to develop strategies quickly as possible, and that circumstances we talk as what is that? It is a non-formal, informal approach. So we identify two types of model as rational models, two types of model as informal model. So we discuss what is rational model, step-by-step approach. We discuss emergent approach, but slight differences. As and when you need arises, you have to change your formal strategy. Then the logical incrementalism approach talk about small changes to existing strategy, where the freewheeling opportunism approach, so that being the last approach, call them as right, is quickly changing. If you find out the opportunities in the market, you do a strategy and grab the market opportunity. Having understood these four types of approaches, let's look at some question. K is a small organization which make plastic toys. The company was very recently formed by Mr. B, and he is a skilled entrepreneur with many years of experience in the industry. The toy industry is incredibly fast changing, with the new innovation being developed regularly. Now you give the picture of the environment. And in addition, tastes and trends change regularly. What means that sales toys can drop quickly as they fall out of fashion. So we have a very limited life cycle for products. Now, what type of strategy? We is aware that company will often require radically new strategies in order to keep up with these changes. Now, I think you are aware which one of the following approach to strategy development would be most appropriate in this scenario is what? There's an opportunity because keep on changing. You can have a forward planning. So that approach is called a free wheeling approach. You see the given situation, your approach may be a different. Right. Right? Okay. We go for the next one. Approaches to strategic planning. So there are another way we can look at it, another approaches for strategic planning. That is what you call a traditional approach, market-led or positioning approach, or resource-based or competence-led approach. Now, try to understand there are different approaches to study. Now, we look at it another approach. Now, how we start? The traditional approach in this year, we look at it the stakeholders' expectation. Right? Now, say for example, increase earning per share by 5% per annum. That is my approach, traditional approach. Now, the emphasis is then on formulating plans to achieve this objective because that is the stakeholders' objective. What is the objective? To increase earning per share by 5% per annum. So, therefore, this is the stakeholders' objective. So, you must emphasize your developing your plan to fulfill with this objective. That is a traditional approach. So the market-led approach or positioning approach, so very difficult to predict the environment. So we start with an analysis of a market. What is market needs? Who are our competitors? What they are doing? If we have a very difficult time to predict the future, so during this type of time, based on the market required, you come up with strategic approach, market-led strategic approach. Third point, a resource-based or competence-led approach. What your company is good at? Your competencies. Sometimes your technology is very difficult to copy by the competitor. So you use your KPI, unique selling properties, and you come up with strengthening that strategy. Right? Okay, let's look at it. Now, have you understood there are three types of approach to strategic planning? Right? Traditional approach, market-led approach, and resource-based approach. Which strategy is good? Right? Let's look at it this case study. J Limited is a company which offers TV repairs to customers. Which offers TV repairs to customers. It has an excellent reputation for customer services and has a good quality workmanship. Right? Now, J Limited feels that it has given it to a competitive advantage in the market. Now, J is considering launching a car maintenance and repair services. It feels that its excellent reputation is likely to make such a move successful. Which of the following approaches to SP, strategic planning, is J adapting? Now, just look at it. Whether to use a positioning approach, traditional approach, resource-led approach, a corporate approach. Corporate approach is more rational approach. Now, what you are good at? You are good at. You have an excellent workmanship. You have a competitive advantage over that. So then what is the approach you use it. Definitely resource-led approach, right? Okay, next one. Now D is a company which offers some home TV repairs to customers. It has an excellent reputation for customer service. Right, it is okay there. No? Now we learn with some example approaches to strategic planning or approach to strategy. These are new things. That area is newly developed by the people in strategic management. We discuss formal, informal, rationale, the Meansburg Emergent, incremental, and freewheeling opportunities. There are 4 approaches. Then we discuss about the market-led, traditional, and resource-based approach. There are 2 ways we learn how, when you want to develop a strategy, what are the factors you need to take into account. Right. Now, next one, we are going to discuss about, now we can remember, we say where we are, where are you want to be, second step. So that is your desired state. So there, you usually prepare 3 type of statement. Any organization is prepared. There are 2 examples, 3 statements, mission statement, value statement, and mission statement. Now let me look at it, all these things. Now, one of the key characteristics we have noted that organizations and teams that have a clear picture about their purpose, about your organization. They have a very clear picture about your organization. Right? So therefore the values, the missions and visions from the core of their identity. And these 3 are glues that gives people, teams, organization responsiveness and innovative in new situation. That is why we are going to now discuss these 3 major components in the strategic planning process. A typical strategic planning process. Let me first discuss what is vision. Now, we said vision is, it's similar to the lighthouse. I think everybody is aware about lighthouse. Vision is similar to lighthouse. It's give directions, but not the destination. It is not your final destination is not the lighthouse, but it's give your direction. Right? So the vision statement is a lighthouse that gives directions rather than the destination. Okay, so then let's look at it. What is vision? So vision statement describe a picture of the preferred future of your organization. The vision set out what organization want to accomplish. And remember, it should be inspired, supported by the sound. So, provide is a panoramic view, and visions are aspirational. So, the roadmap showing the route the banks intend to take and developing and strengthening its business. So, the vision is a very essence of leadership. Right? Okay. So, I think you know what you mean by a vision. Why is a vision necessary for an organization? Why you think vision is important for an organization? Main thing is, first, it provides a framework with which the entire company to operate. So entire organizations are operating, look at it, that vision. So it facilitates for organization to set high level of goals and plans necessary to achieve these goals. Right? It's give you sense of directions to the company. So that is the importance of vision statement. That is why we need to develop a vision statement for your organization. So why do organization vision then? As I told you, it brings people together, coordinates, helps everyone to make decisions, and it is the foundations of any business plan. Because this provides challenges as well as incongruent behavior more noticeable. If somebody is behaving in a different way, you can see this. So that is one of the reasons why do organization missions. Right? So we discuss what is vision, why it is necessary, why do missions. And let's look at it now. What are the key important components of an organization mission? Right? What are the important components? Audacious. Now, present vision is beyond your present reality. Something you aim at in the future. So therefore, future casting. So vision shows you a picture of what your organization would like to be in the future. In your case, you should have a vision for future casting. What you are going to be. Next 10 years, I'm going to be this AGM, TGM like that. It should be inspiring. Enthusiasm and process of challenge. It's motivating and it's a purpose driven. Because every organization has a purpose. So these are the important components to an organizational vision. Audacious, future casting, inspiring, motivating, purpose driven. Right. Now, I think you have a fair knowledge about vision. But remember, what are the characteristics of an effectively worded vision statement? It's a graphic. Show a picture of your organization. It's a directional. It should be say something about your organization, about destination. It should be focused, and also it should be flexible and also feasible, desirable, and also easy to communicate. There are so many characteristics of a good vision. When you're developing a vision, all these factors you need to take into account. Right, let's look at it now. Some of the vision statement of your banks and some Sri Lankan banks. Okay, what is the BOC vision? Bankers to the nation. Let's look at it. What is People's Bank vision? To be the bank of aspiring people of Sri Lanka. Powering people, creative, competitive, and self-reliant. What is HNB? To be the acknowledged leader, chosen partner in providing financial solution. What is the commercial bank vision? To be the most technologically advanced, innovative, and customer-friendly financial services in the Sri Lanka. What is Sampan? The growing force in Sri Lankan financial services. What is Ceylon? To be Sri Lanka's leading bank with a heart is a motto, right? Vision to be the Sri Lanka's leading financial service provider. What is NDB? Driving force for a financially empowered Sri Lanka. This is Sampath and NDB are little close. What is NSD? Most reliable and sought after choice for savings and investment solution. Pan Asia become the most customer preferred commercial bank in Sri Lanka. DFCC to be the leading financial solution provider. Right? Now, if you really look at it about these statements, something is there. What is that? It is forward-looking, inspirational, right? They talk about. And those are the banks. And there may be Tesla, the leading number one richest person. They talk about the vision as as it has the in your handout it is there to create the most compelling car company in the 21st century by driving the world's transitions to electric vehicles. Yes, achieved to some extent to that. What is EB say? Our vision for commerce is one of that enable people powered with technology. What is our LECO say? LECO talk about enjoy being the light for lives of people through. What is Emergent talk? Emergent say to be the earth's most customer-centric company, where customers can find and discover anything they might to want to buy on online. That is Emergent. Right? So you noted that every vision statement have some important things inbuilt. Inspirational, motivational, forward-looking purposes. Right? So what are the benefits of a vision as we explained? Give you a long-term direction. It becomes a drive to change. It serves as a roadmap to the organization. So many things the vision will tell you or gives you for organization. Now let's look at it. What are the problems? Because most of the time, most of the organization is very vague, not distinctive, not properly communicated, too generic. I mean, it ignores real practical issues. It should be appealing, right? Then it's become more good vision statement. Right. I think now you have idea about strategy, vision. Right. So remember, the strategic intent encompasses an active management processes that includes organization's attention, motivating people. It's guide the resource allocation. So you need to know what is strategic intent as well. Right. Let's look at it now. What is mission? Now, what is mission? The missions typically describes basic purpose of the organization and tries to identify the reason to exist. Now, strategies of the organization should be designed to support the accomplishment of the mission. When you develop your strategy, ensure that those strategies will support the accomplishment of the mission. And also remember, mission typically describe what the organization does to achieve its mission. That is why we start with vision, then mission. Now, mission is always a present thing and the future. Right? Past and the future, present. Whereas the vision is always talk about the futuristic. Right? So visions talk about the purpose. What do we exist? Why our organization exists? What we are providing to the customers. So for whom do we exist? So mission statement always try to answer these three questions. Right? Remember the mission statement. Now, if you read a mission statement, you can understand or you can tell what business that particular organization is involving. Because the mission statements try to fulfill the stakeholders' expectation. Now let's look at it. Some of the component a mission statement must have. First one, your mission statement must talk about your customers. What type of customers you are going to serve? Your mission statement talk about your services or your product you're offering. So your mission statements talk about the market you operate. The mission statement talk about the technology you are using. Mission statements also talk about your profitability, growth or survival aspect. Talk about your philosophy. What are your values, aspirations, and things like that. And also talk about your competitive advantage. And also concern about the public image. And also concern for employees. So therefore, you noted that the mission statement having so many components. Okay. Now, so you are given tasks, been studying the strategic management course or strategic management part of this syllabus. You was asked to develop a mission statement for your organization. Now, the organizations are not provide mission statement as ad hoc basis. If you really look at it, a mission statement. So all this majority of good mission statement have all these components incorporated to their mission statement. Maximum possible. There are 9. Then you may think we are telling mission statement to be very short and sweet. It should be readable, memorable, things like that. But we need to incorporate so many things. How can we have a better short mission statement? Now let's look at it. Some of the mission statement, right? Think about the Bank of Ceylon mission statement. They talk about the customers. But of course, the Bank of Ceylon mission statement is a little long. But they talk about the customers. They talk about the internal staff. They talk about their stakeholders. They talk about the society, that is the public image. Some of the components they talk. Then you look at the People's Bank. They also talk some of the components of the. Now look at it. H&B about the mission statement. So they talk much. They talk about empowered people. So that is your staff. You are empowered your staff. And you are using technology. They talk about the technology, 2 things. What type of technology? Leading edge technology. New technology. What you are going to do? You are going to support your stakeholders' expectations. But still there something is lacking, not fully covered. But if you look at it, the commercial banks, mission statement, providing reliable, innovative, customer-friendly financial services. They talk about their products. They talk about what type of customers they are going to serve. They talk about what type of product and services. They talk about the technology, utilizing cutting-edge technology, focusing continuously and providing productivity improvement whilst developing your staff. They talk about the staff and they talk about the market. So you noted a lot of component the commercial bank mission statement talk about. They talk about their customers, one, they talk about their products, they talk about their markets, they talk about their technology, They talk about your survival, growth, and profitability. That is called focusing continuously productivity improvements. They talk about concern for their service. They talk about your philosophy, developing our staff, and acquiring necessary staff. So they talk about the staff and they talk about self-concept and they talk about the community as well as the market. So you see, some of the organization may take into account all the important components when you need to prepare a strategic plan. And Sampath also had the same thing. So if you look at the CELAR, also covered a lot of components in the state. Even for NDB, you note at all these things. A lot of factors take into account which has to be incorporated to the value state, mission state. And if you see a lot of organization mission statement, right? When you're developing the mission state, right? Okay, what is the purpose of mission statement? It supports your planning decisions. It assists in translating purposes and directions into the objectives. It provides purpose between different interest groups to the organization. Right? So there will be a lot of purposes fulfilled by the mission statement. So what are the problems then, like vision? Because it is ignored in practice. So usually you can see both visions statements are in the annual report or your uh, training department or those places. It's really for public consumption. Most of the time, maybe it's outdated, right? It's not something very much aligned with your vision. Okay? Right. So there are some problem with vision statement. Now, especially for fast moving organization, so it quickly become outdated. So accordingly, we have to be change your vision. But it's not so very easy, very simple way to change your vision, right? Okay. Now we learn vision, we learn mission. Now, therefore, the mission is the tangible and the operational component of a vision. Right? Remember. So, how you can convert your vision to a mission. Right. So then another statement. Now this we call value statement. Now remember the value statements earlier incorporated to the mission statement. And people realize values play an important role in today business environment. So they have taken out from the mission statement, and they have put a separate statement called value statement. So your bank, your organization activities, your organization performance are carried within the framework of the values. Values give you guidelines how to carry out your objectives, how to carry out your missions and things like that. It's a business principle, standards, practices that guide the conduct of his business. Right? That is value. That is why a lot of organizations are prepared a separate value state. Because you see now today, a lot of TV commercials are running about values. For TV advertisement, they talk only their values, not even their products. You noted that even for example, I can say for dialogue and Maliban, even for commercial credit, even for Hadukur, right? They talk about the value state, right? So they carry out via belief values. We are operating the business at values to your life. So people trust those value compared. So why it is important publishing corporate values? And remember, the values are at the heart of every successful organization. And those principles or guides that each staff member shares. Now remember, now how you want to display a value just to be shown from your staff. They need to practice and they need to show. That is why there's a small commercial they talk about, but it is not nice. But say some old woman look at it, some label, and then one gentleman came and direct her. They said, "Where may arrange a banquet?" So it has to, employees need to show the organization values. So the corporate values impact every part of the firm and are understood by every employee. That is why these important things like values, vision, mission need to be communicated to each and every employee. Because who is going to carry all these things? Your employees. But unfortunately, those things are available for public consumption. Maybe publish in your website, maybe your annual report, maybe your training department, but it has to be in your heart. You are the people, you need to carry all these three things. And the questions come. How to intensify, how to ensure that all the employees are aware about these three things. Few examples, some banks are, every time you switch on your computer or laptop or whatever, first sight is your statements, your value statements or value mission statement or your mission statement. That is you exposed to every time the moment you open your laptop. It shows your value statement. Second one, if you have interviews for promotion interviews, at the interview, the interviewers must ask from the employees, what is your value, what are the mission statements, and they come for an interview, they will memorize and come. This is the one way you be popularize, memorize your mission statement for your employees. There are different techniques used by different people, right? To popularize your, memorize your mission statements, right? Okay, right. These are some of the values developed by different banks. Your integrity, creativity, excellence, sincerity, accountability. So different banks having a different value state. HNBs, when you do your business, we ensure that we behave in a professional manner. These are the Apple's core values. These are some of the Apple Sampat values. Central Bank also having some value state. And this is Sony values. This is Merck, the pharmaceutical company values, as our telecom values and HNB. So, likewise, there may be a value statement developed by banks and other organizations. Sad part, how many of you are aware about the organization value statement? So, these are the three things in the typical traditional strategy plan process was consistent. Right. Now we learn values, vision, we learn vision, and then we discuss about the values. Those are desired state where your organization is going to be. Right? And then we are now moving to from vision to goals. So the mission should be expressed in clear and specific, fairly long-term financial or maybe not financial goals, and addressing each priority areas mentioned in your mission statement. So the goals as the intention behind an organization action. So the goals are further refined or focus statements of intent directed at those aspects of the organization's operations. So they talk about the core businesses, right? That's the goals. Goals are somewhat more broader terms. Now, if you really look at it, the funnel, so the outer cover you see is the vision. Then come little further down, you see the vision. And then come further down, you see the goals. And the final thing you are coming out slowly by one, that is objectives. Right? Then you start with the vision, more broader, and further little narrower than vision is the mission, and then the goal, and from the goals is objectives. The frame, it covered all, we call them as values. Right? So objectives are the more precise statement of the goals. Objectives are more precise goals of the goal. So let's look at it now about the core objectives. Now remember, there are very acronym often used for setting objective, or sometimes we call them as a characteristics and objective. These are characteristics and objective. What have we called? SMART. We call them as a SMART. Now, specific should be S means specific. What do you mean specific? We need to clearly express. Now, say for an example, improve performance is too vague. But improving operating profit, increasing market share, very specific. It's clearly expressed. Improve performance, what way? And the second M is measurables. What is measurable mean? It is quantifiable. Now see, improve performance. We don't know in what sense. Improve image. Very difficult to measure. But to say, increasing operating profit to 20% of turnover is very quantifiable. Increasing your market share by 2%, very quantifiable. A, denote for achievable. B is objective being perceived as achievable by those being held responsible for achieving them. Now say for an example, improving operating profit up to 80% of turnover is probably will be the impossible to achieve. Improve your present market share by 25% is unachievable. You can do it whereas other banks are not there. So you must set achievable but challenging. And two things are important. So challenging but achievable objectives. Those are the specific characteristics of an objective. Then you look at the relevant. What do you mean by relevant? The relevant means explicitly linked to the overall goals of the business. Now say for an example, increase customer retention by 5% is relevant to the overall goal of increasing customer satisfaction. It's a part and parcel of overall goal, increasing customer satisfaction. How can you satisfy? By increasing your retention of customers' retention of 5%. It will support your goal. So therefore, it is relevant. Now again, something you noted that if you say, I'm going to increase my businesses. So you said your vision, you said you are going to improve your business, or your missions talk about I am improve my business only doing business in locally. But your objective saying, I'm going to improve my market share by opening branches in Bangladesh. So there's a conflict. It is not relevant. Why? One way your goal say you are trying to improve your business locally. But your objective say you're going to improve your business by opening branches in somewhere else. Bangladesh. So there is no relevant. There won't be explicitly linked to the overall goals of the business. Right? So therefore, objective must be relevant and also timely. What do you mean by time? Just time scale have to be set. You can say, I'm going to improve my market share 2%. What do you think? All some of the smart factors are there. Yeah, specific. Yes, yes. Why specific? Clearly mention market share expressly. Going to achieve by 2%. Yeah, very measurable, achievable. Is there, am there, are also there by doing business locally, but still not smart. Why? I'm not inform you when you're going to achieve. It's maybe this year, maybe next year, maybe another 2 years time. But if you need to be smart, you have to mention the time. I'm going to achieve my market share by doing business in locally in 2021 year by the period. So then it's become smart. Now you see the smartness of the objective. Right. Let's look at it. And objectives also, remember, not only smart, not only have a good characteristics. A lot of people are not realize this. Remember, objectives perform a number of functions. Objective performs a number of functions. Easy to remember the prime. First one, planning. Now, objectives provide framework for planning. So they are the targets to which the plan is supposed to reach. Plan. Objective perform the responsibility function. Objectives are given to the managers or of divisions or the departments or section. This communicate to them the activities, the projects or areas they are responsible and the level and types of output required from them. So objectives therefore talk about the responsibility. An objective also perform as an integration function. So objectives are how senior managers are coordinated the work of the company. So that shows the goal congruence. We discussed last week what is called congruence. One of the benefits of strategic planning is that so different goals are come up in different departments. When you're formulating your strategic plan, this goals has to be congruous. So objective will perform that function. And objectives also perform the motivation function. Objectives also perform the motivation function. So management will be motivated to reach the objectives in order to impress their superiors or sometimes perhaps realizes receive some bonuses. So objective function, motivation. And the last, evaluation. Now, senior management control business by how? By evaluating, by evaluating the performance of managers responsible of his measures, objectives must therefore be capable of being to be evaluated. So likewise, objectives perform number of functions. We call as an acronym as a prime. Planning, responsibility, integration, motivation, and evaluation. Right? Okay. For any organization, you may have different type of objectives. Corporate level objectives, sometimes we call them as a primary objectives, tactical objectives, and operational level objectives. So it depends on the hierarchy of objectives. The objectives further categorized into three: corporate, tactical, operation. If you really look at it, this hierarchy of objectives, you may look at the corporate objectives to increase the return on investment annually by 12%. Maybe improve my market share or reductions of cost to income ratio or something like corporate objective. So you can consider this as a corporate objective. And then the tactical objectives to increase the sale of a product X by 20% within the next 6 months. So that's a tactical objective. So the operational objectives can be to increase the awareness of the product X by 50% within the next 3 months. So you look at it, these are operational objectives. Example for operational. Now these operational objectives support the tactical objectives, and tactical objectives support the corporate objective. Right? So you need to understand there is a difference hierarchy levels of the objectives. Right? Okay. Then you notice that what are the areas you can set objectives? You know the Peter Drucker. Peter Drucker is supposed to be we call him as a father of management. Father of management. And father of modern management rather. Who is the father of management? And he's the guy who come up with management concepts, what is called Henry Fayol. Right. The Peter Drucker has identified what are the key areas, that means the key resource areas where corporate objectives can be set, right? They have identified 8 areas you can set objective based on the market standing, based on your present market position, your market share. That's the area you can set your corporate objective. And also you can set through innovations. You can set your corporate objectives, productivity areas, your resourcing areas, profitability areas, your employee development. I need to develop my employees. By all organizations, people who are working, having banks, having bank qualified. Employee relationship, social responsibility. I spend 6% of my profits earning for social activities, so social well-being. Right? So these are the 8 areas as per the Peter Drucker you can set cooperative objective for an organization. Right. Now, the strategic objectives. So follow the set, read by the following the set objectives, set strategies. Now, these objectives or strategies communicate to management through the tactical objectives, which in turn are implemented and reviewed through the setting a large number of operational objectives. Right? The corporate objectives, they supported with tactical objectives, as I told you, and which supported the operational objectives. Now we need to look at it. Key performance indicators, individual performance targets, to see whether these objectives are achieved or not. That we are going to discuss later on. Right? Okay. So, last things on the first this topic, what we are going to discuss about the policies. About the policies. Now, the policies are basically we call statements or ground rules or framework within which the organization need to apply all these strategic plan process. Right? And it's give you guidelines. It guides the managers and employees in executions of their organizational strategies. Because whatever you need to do, whatever you carry out when you're developing your strategic plan, so you need to carry out this policy framework. So that is why I call the policy. It's very important in the strategic planning process. Right? So what we have learned today, right? What we have learned today. So we learn what is strategic planning approaches, right? We learn strategic planning approaches. Now, what are the strategic planning approaches? just summarize what we have learned today. What are the strategy planning approaches we learned? We started with today is the level of strategies. So organizations, we need to develop three levels of strategies usually. One is the corporate level strategies, usually developed by the top people for entire organization. For an example, introducing new product, acquisition or merging take place, right? So those are the strategic level decisions. Then we discuss about the business level strategy at the SBU level, what products or what market we need to enter, what customer groups we need to handle, what segments we need to select, also comes under business. So the third level we discuss about the operational levels, where we discuss how many staff you need to employ or how much inventory you need to be carried out, like this. Right? These are the three levels of strategies. Then we discuss the approaches to strategic development or planning. So we identify two types of approaches. One is the formal approach, other one is the informal approach. Where the formal approach exists in relatively stable industry, we have enough time to do some strategic analysis. Whereas the informal approach, we don't have a time for strategic analysis. Very dynamic industry, so we need to apply informal approach. So then we have identified there are two types of approaches under formal approach, that is our rational or more traditional approach, where we have a logical one step-by-step approach, and then we have Meansburg Emergent approach. So we have a formal approach, but we want to change, respond to unexpected events that impact the organization, so strategy facilitate that. Then under informal approach, we two types of approaches. One is logical incrementalism approach, that we because if you're faced with the bounded rationality, this strategy we basically talk about small scale expansion to your past policies, past strategies. But then we have another strategy called freewheeling opportunism approach, especially if we have a fast fashion industry where we don't have a time, so we need to come up with a freewheel opportunism approach. So why we learn all these strategic approach? We not combine or not confined to one of these strategies, may be changed from time to time. Then the second issue of the second factor we learn about the strategy planning process. We discussed earlier, where are we now? Where are you want to be and how to be there? So the second aspect is, what is the desired state the organization expecting by developing a strategies plan? Where do we want to be? There, of course, we discuss three most important areas, that is vision, values, goals, objectives. But specific reference to vision. What is vision? Visions give you directions to your organization, right? It is not the final end. It's give you a direction to the entire organization to go in. So then we discuss why we need a vision for an organization, right? And then we discuss what are the important component of a vision statement or vision. Should be audacious, future casting, inspiring, motivating, purpose driven. Then we also discuss what are the characteristics of a vision statement. What are the things to be incorporated graphically, directionally, focused, flexible, feasible, desirable, and finally easy to communicate. Then we end up with some problems as benefits of vision. And then we took some example from the banking fraternity. What are the vision statements in almost all banks in Sri Lanka, leading commercial banks in Sri Lanka. And then we move in from vision to vision, and we discuss what is vision or what is mission. We told it's a basic purposes of organization. What is the purpose of existing my organization? What are the objective of vision stage? Right? And we further elaborated what are the components must be incorporated when you're developing a vision statement. It need to be addressed the customers, need to be addressed the products, markets, technology, your concern for yourself, your profitability, your philosophy need to address. They need to be concerned for your employees as well as the community. So good mission statement remind you we covered all the key components. So we have took some example from the banking fraternity again. How in your bank mission statement incorporated these elements? Honestly, majority of banks are incorporated those majority of these important ingredient in the mission statement. And then we discuss what are the purposes as well as the problem of mission. Okay. And mind you, I forgot to maybe to tell you. So how can you compare vision and mission? We look at it next week. The comparisons between vision and mission. Right? And then we discuss about the values. Now how value statement came. Actually, a value statement is earlier comes under the mission statement. Now they have taken out the mission statement, a value statement, and have a separate statement. Now, why it is important for an organization? What you can do with this value statement, right? And then we discuss some examples of some banks. Having understood about the value statement, and then we discuss the next steps is the goals. What is goals? Goals are more broader terms, more broad aspect, and more realistic area of mission. Goals are talk about the core businesses, more broader. If you say which one is more smart, whether the goals or the objective, so the objectives are more smarter than goals. So the precise statement of a goal, and we have identified as objectives. Then we discuss with some examples. What is smart? So what are the characteristics of a good objective for an organization? Objective may be short term, medium term, and a long term. Right? And then we move into discuss what are the functions of an objective. Now we discuss PRIME, abbreviations or acronyms: planning, responsibility, integrations, motivations, and evaluation. We discuss how these objectives perform these functions. Then we move into areas, the hierarchy of objectives. So objectives are in different levels: corporate levels, tactical levels, and operations level. And we identify what are these corporate objectives, how these tactical objectives support the corporate objectives, and how operational objectives, what are they, and how these operational objectives support achievement of tactical objectives, with some examples. And then we also discuss what Peter Drucker identified as corporate objectives areas or key results areas: market standing, innovation, productivity, resourcing, profitability, employee development, employee relations, social responsibility. Any organization can set their corporate objective, all these areas. And finally, we discussed today. So all these activities need to be carried out within certain framework, and that we call organizational policies. What is the rules, procedures? You need to guidance. All these activities need to be carried out. So that's the first part of our question answer. What is that? Where are we going to be? Started with vision, value, goals and objectives. Right? So the next week, we will be going to discuss where are we now? What is our present situation? For that, we are going to analyze your organization. Help of Western analysis, SWOT analysis, Michael Porter analysis, some more analysis, stakeholder analysis, competitor analysis. Find it out where you are. And the final, we will going to discuss the strategies. Right? So we may conclude today, and so we will continue next Saturday at the same time at 3:50. Okay, thank you very much. So we will see you all next Saturday.